My name is Naira Ashkel, and I want that recorded first, because everything after this will be numbers. I am a field cataloger for the Averland Archive, third generation. My grandfather Cor Ashkel sat at the table when the Verge Charting Compact was signed, back when three species that had never met agreed to share one thing, a header. A string of code that meant, in any tongue and on any hull, this is a record, not a weapon. Carry it. Don't ask why. That header is the only inheritance he left me that still works. I was 3 weeks past my resupply window, cataloging a debris ring nobody else wanted, when the ring turned out to be occupied. Not by people, by something old and automatic that mistook my survey ship for salvage and opened on me before I understood what it was. I got clear. The Fenimore did not. Hull breach, reactor bleed, both drives cooked. I have air for 11 more days, if I don't talk much and don't move much. I am talking anyway. Moving a little too, because there are things a person wants finished. I am not sending a distress call. I want that on the record as clearly as my name. Nobody is close enough to reach me in 11 days, and I have run the number 4 different ways to be sure. This is a log. It is addressed, under the old header, to the Averland Archive, care of whichever relay station still answers to that string. It is the last entry in a catalog I have kept for 11 years, and it is also, I will admit only once, a letter to my daughter, who will be old enough to read the technical parts and skip to the end. I did the survey work first, because that is what the header is for, and because it is easier than the other part. The debris ring is not debris. It is a boneyard, an old defensive line, hundreds of small automated hulls gone dark and drifting for what I estimate is close to 3 centuries. Their fire control systems still live on some ancient standing order, nobody left behind to cancel. Whoever built that line is long gone. There is no flag on any hull I can match to a living power, no registry mark that means anything to my databases. I drifted the Fenimore's dead husk along the outer edge for 2 days, before I understood the pattern well enough to be sure it would fire again if I moved, and 1 more day after that before I trusted myself to record it steadily, instead of just staring at it through the cracked forward port. I have logged the coordinates, the hull count, the firing intervals, the spectral signature of whatever alloy they used that has not visibly corroded in 300 years. Everything a cataloger is supposed to leave behind. That part I did not have to force. It is the only part of this log that still feels like my job and not my funeral. The other part I did have to force, and I am not going to pretend otherwise. I do not have anything clever to say about dying. I have a list of names I would like read into the archive's oral record at the next Founding Day gathering, and a request that my share of the charting fund go to my daughter's schooling, and not, as my brother will suggest, to a memorial marker. I have already got one of those. It is called the Boneyard, and I found it, and it can carry my name for free. My daughter is 11. She will be old enough by the time this reaches anyone to understand the parts about drive failure and reactor bleed, and she will skip them anyway, because she already knows how a survey ship dies. I taught her the diagrams myself, at a kitchen table, before either of us thought I would need them recited back to me from the far side of the Verge. What I want her to have instead is smaller than a diagram. I want her to know that her mother spent the last useful hours of her heir doing the job properly, counting hulls, logging alloys, refusing to let the fear make the numbers sloppy, because that is what I would want her to do, and because a cataloger who panics in the final entry has wasted the only thing she had left to teach. I sent the log on a wide, slow band, the kind meant to be caught eventually by whatever old relay still happened to be listening along the Verge, because a directional beam takes more power than I can spare, and more aim than I trust myself to hold steady. I did not check where the compact's old relay chain actually still reached. I assumed, if I thought about it at all, that it reached nothing, that I was writing into an empty room out of habit, the way you keep saying a dead man's name. I was wrong about the room. 8 days in, with air enough for 3 more if I stopped talking now, something answered. It was not a rescue signal. I want to be precise about that, because precision is the only inheritance I have left to give. It was an acknowledgement burst, flat and short, riding back down the same old header string, and it did not come from anywhere near the Averland Archive. It came from a hull I did not recognize, broadcasting under compact protocol, human registered, older than any active human vessel I had catalog entries for. Its own logs, appended to the burst as courtesy, told me what it was: an unmanned survey and patrol craft, one of a class laid down generations ago to walk a boundary line that used to matter to somebody, running standing orders nobody had ever formally rescinded. It had been walking that line for longer than I have been alive. It caught my header the way it was built to catch any header. It did not know or care that the header was old, or that the treaty behind it had gone quiet, or that I had not aimed a single word of it at Earth. That should have been the end of it. A relic answering a relic. Two old machines with nothing left to give each other. Instead, the burst carried a second layer under the acknowledgement. This one plain language, human, filed through what identified itself as a listening post, not a fleet command. I am translating it as close to word for word as I can manage with the processing I have left. Signal received. Header confirmed under Verge Charting Compact. Archival status. No emergency classification requested by sender. No rescue asset within range. Confirming this openly rather than pretending otherwise. Content is not addressed to us. Forwarding along old compact relay chain toward listed recipient, Averlin Archive, with priority flag and full technical appendix intact. One copy retained here, unread beyond header and routing data, per compact courtesy clause. Not ours to keep. Heard you. I have read that 4 times now, and each time I expect it to feel like less than it is, and each time it doesn't. They are not coming. They said so plainly, before I could ask, which is its own kind of mercy. I did not have to sit with false hope and then watch it die on schedule. But they did not simply let the words drift either, the way I expected them to when I sent them into what I thought was an empty room. Some officer at a station I will never see took the trouble to confirm what I had already told myself, that this was a record, not a call for help, and that nobody was owed a fleet for it. And then, having established that they owed me nothing, they spent their own relay chain, their own bandwidth, their own old ship's dying attention, making certain my words reached the people I actually wrote them for. That is not rescue. I want to be careful not to call it that. It is something smaller and, I am finding, harder to hold. It is a stranger reading your address correctly and walking your letter the rest of the way to your own door, then stepping back before you can thank them properly. I have 4 days of air left, by the honest count, and I intend to spend them the way I planned to before any of this. Finishing the boneyard survey, naming the names, saying what I meant to say to my daughter without dressing it up further than it already is. I no longer think of this log as words thrown into an empty room. I know now that the room was never empty, that an old ship none of us built for kindness was still standing exactly where it had been told to stand 300 years ago, and that whoever reads its traffic on the other end chose, with nothing to gain from it, to be honest with a dying stranger, and then carry her mail besides. I did not aim any of this at Earth. I want that on the record too, right alongside my name. It does not seem to have mattered to them at all. This is Naira Ashkel, Field Cataloger, Averlin Archive, closing the log.